Rahobat, greetings. Thank you all for tuning in to episode 9. This episode is the secrets of the sacred Femi-Nine. Today, this is every time we have an episode, welcome back. Every time we have an episode, I say that this is a special episode. Well, they typically are, simply because this information that will be delivered and given to the world is very significant today as it relates to our women, to our mothers, to our daughters, to our sisters, right, to our wives, to our mates and companions. When you look at the world today, you see that the abuse of women, the feminine across the globe, the abuses that has been perpetrated by men in the religious communities, you see that the women have no voice. It's been dominated by patriarchal authority within the religious world, which again 90% of most people that are religious succumb to. So today we're going to introduce a series of factual information, as we do on the Actual Facts podcast. When you hear this information, you may have heard it. You may have heard in different spaces, the female goddess, the woman is God, etc. You haven't heard any of this information prior to the master teacher, His Excellency Dr. Malachi Z.K. York, introduced us to this most profound doctrine that includes, which actually is the most powerful aspect of our doctrine and our culture, is the reintroduction to the powers and authorities of the feminine. And us as men who have been students of the Father, students of the Actual Facts, we have to acknowledge this, because no other doctrine, no other group or let's say institution, no other religious clergy or religious authorities have accepted and acknowledged the feminine and her powers and her abilities, divine rights and abilities to rule and guide the family, as she has done for thousands of years prior to the introduction to these Adamite doctrines. Now, this is necessary in this day and time because the feminine in our culture, Wusabat, in our doctrine, as you learned in the previous episodes, the culture that has been lost and has been given to us again by our Supreme Being, our Heavenly Father, Panabab Yanun, the incarnated divine being in flesh that exists amongst us today. One of his top priorities was to restore the feminine's power and restore her light and give her a doctrine that where she can find her place and see her greatness and beauty and graciousness and all of the attributes of the feminine within our culture. A lot of the deities that we acknowledged and looked up to as feminine have been removed from the faces and the images of most books, of most cultures, of most doctrines, modern day doctrines across the globe. And you see why the world is in the condition that it's in today. So what we're going to do is cover a series of books that will give the most complete details and that reveal the secrets of the feminine that we have lost. And it's important to do that to maintain and restore balancement within our universe, within our worlds, on this planet, within the system of rule and creation. The feminine is the goddess that manifests the material world for us to exist in. And this has to be acknowledged, and it has to be something that we put in a priority, especially the men, because we have a duty to teach and uplift and restore our women, right? And as long as we become the first men to do that, then we will succeed. And this is the job of the Actual Facts podcast. So I welcome you again. Now, the books that we're going to cover, of course, these are available for those that would like to access the publications. The email will be in the link, in the description, where you can email. For those that have email, that's fine. appreciate you, and these books will be available. One of the most profound publications that the author, Dr. Malachi Z.K. York, has written, one of the most profound books is called The Gospel of Yanun on the Sacred Feminine. It's Pa Tanjal Shalal Yanun Pa Kadesh Vanas Tasu. This is the Gospel of Yanun, of the Sacred Feminine, right? The Lotus of Life. This book is filled with science. It's filled with the explanation, scientific explanation of the feminine's body, her particular organs, her completeness or wholeness as a woman with 2 X chromosomes. We know that the male has XY. So the father goes into specific science details and science about the mitochondrial DNA, how the woman actually created man and not the other way around. The religious world has lied, of course, with this creation story that Adam was Adam was made from clay, and then out of the rib came this woman, right? A complete woman from an incomplete man. So these sciences are outdated. The genetics, the story is outdated. We all know that. So we're going to go through this Lotus of Life. We're going to touch on, also we're going to go through the planet Earth is women. This is a Patriarch. This explains the responsibility of the feminine and what she must do as a goddess and what she must maintain in her authority as she's restored to power. It's a major obligation and responsibility that she must live up to. And the planet Earth is women explain what happened in the remote past, how because the feminine in her as a record keeper of the mitochondria and the descendancy and the records of our family, then she's responsible for who and how she mixes her seed. And because the feminine of past, one of the reasons why they lost their glory was mixing in with the beast man, mixing their seeds with the other races, which caused her divinity to be, her genes to be tainted and her divinity to fall. And so that book goes into explaining that, the responsibility that women have today. We also have the Sacred Feminine, right? This is a Patriarch as well. Patriarch are publications, another series of publications that Dr. Malachi Z.K. York wrote in order for us to have our way. Patriarch means the way. It's a series of books that guides us on how we should live. And so this Sacred Feminine is incredible. It's very insightful on all things sacred to the feminine, how she should walk, how she should talk, her gracefulness, her flirtatiousnness, her beauty, her motivation. What drives men to be motivated is from the feminine in her beauty. So that book will also be quoted. Another book is called Goddess Creator. These are questions really to men. When you read this, you'll see that it's questions to men on why men behave the way that we behave by turning our women into just complete sexual objects, by controlling her desire and controlling the resources in order to control the goddess, and sometimes even so far as we control her till we can subdue her, and then eventually she dies and dies internally from her divine right, has been subdued and has been subjected to male rule, which it was never how it was intended to be. And so this Goddess Creator is important for men to question and respect or relook at the feminine that has birthed you as a physical body, brought you into this planet. All women are responsible, right, for bringing in whatever prophets, whatever imams, whatever messiah, whatever deities that you worship, right? The feminine is the portal by which these beings are born in flesh. And so that gratitude and appreciation has to be established first and foremost. We also have the Black Book, right? The Black Book is is a science-based actual fact, not series, but it covers the sacred records of Atum-Re, and it addresses the mitochondria, the creation of man, the metamorphosis, the environment that caused the female to be born out of water first and the male to dominate the seas in our creation story, which has been lost but reintroduced, as we'll speak on that as well. But this Black Book itself goes into various chapters it explains in these chapters what happened in the 54,000 years ago when the females began to come out of water, because the seed of the divine of our Incarnated seed was placed within the waters. And so the female was the one to come out first and the one to speak first. Each even had children on her own, right, without the aid of man, because she had both chromosomes. And we'll get into that science as the Father covers in the Black Book. Also creators, fashioners, and who was God, male or female. And so I think that it's fair to, let's try to start at the beginning, because it's a lot of information. I try to do my best to gather what's available and then explain it in layman's term as an introduction for those that are not aware of our doctrine as it relates to who the Femi-Nine is. And I think this will heal a lot of the hurt people on the planet. The Father has introduced it to his children, his daughters, the men specifically, for them to be re-educated, because the Adamite religious doctrine has did total destruction on how the men look at the Femi-Nine. And the Femi-Nine has suffered for 6,000 years under that rule. And, you know, men, you have to be prepared to expect what is to come from the abuses that you've given the Femi-Nine. I mean, when you see these movements taking place where women are rebelling against the rule of men, you can't really tell a woman how she's supposed to respond to being a victim for so long, generations. So there's no complaints coming from any of the men. In fact, we have more compassion because we're being taught by the Father and understanding how the Adamite religion, their patriarch system, removed the Femi-Nine's glory and made her the reason of the fall of all humanity, as you read in the Adam and Eve story. They don't blame the devil for the fall of humanity. They don't blame this Lord for the fall of humanity. For some reason, you can see the patriarchal dominance has created a space where women now are responsible for the fall of man, and they have to wear this label all of their lives, especially in the religious world. And in that, they have done so much of a good job in wearing it that they even partake of the doctrines and still maintain loyalty and dedication to her job, even when the world has turned their backs on the woman by blaming her for the fall of man. And so we have a lot of rectifying to do. So this is the podcast. This is the podcast to do so. So let's address obviously the Femi-Nine and what and who she is by mitochondria, which we touched on in episode 1 and 2. However, we do want to readdress it now. When you look at page 39, let's go to page 39 of the Black Book, right? When you read the Black Book, I don't know if you all are aware of the Black Book, but let's go to us just really quickly where the Father explains about the mitochondria, and he touches on this. And the reason why this is important is because this is where all creation stems and the records of creation comes out of. So what he explains is, he says, he asks about the female. Someone asks him a question. He said, did their new environment, which is the environment for the humanoids, right? Did the new environment bring about a mutation? Now, the reason why I'm going back there is because we're talking about the waters. We're not going into the creation story yet, but we're going into how the Femi-Nine, the seed of the DNA from Sahat and Saha, which is Sabat and Saha, which are Orion and Sirius, those genes from our ancestors was placed in the waters on this planet, right? Kawapta, planet Earth, right? When you look at our creation story, I'm not speaking about the religious, let's put that to the side for a second. When you see our creation story, our deities, our overseers that look like you, look like the Incarnated race, the African race, when they came to this planet, they placed their seeds in the waters in order for the humanoids, the Incarnated, to grow out of water, which still happens, and the first ones to grow on land. So this environment, there had to be a conducive environment for this metamorphosis to take place. So when you read page 9, he asks, the question is asked to the master teacher, says, yes, in fact, the female dominated species had developed enlarged lungs that enabled them to live on land and in the seas. And as time passed, the females took dominion of the land. And in that particular context, he also speaks about in ancient there's a master secret. It's called the ancient signs, right? The ancient signs of speech. I'm going to show that to you there. You can see that, right? The ancient signs of speech speaks about, can you see it? Yeah. It speaks about on actually page 1, right? Page 2, how after 54,000 years the female was able to speak first. This is why women speak much better than men, right? However, men were the writers, and that's because of the two sides of the brain. So we're going to lay out the differences between the feminine and the masculine, and then in the future we'll go into the creation story. Now what he explains is this, is that the right part of the brain, right, of the brain is images, which is the feminine. The left part of the brain is the male analytical aspect. So the right part of the brain is images that females, they have this very detailed, vivid part of their brain that allows them to photographic memory, to see things very clearly, right? And then the left side of the brain is the analytical part, which is the male part. But these two must come together harmoniously, and in order to have what? A balanced brain. And because of the genetics, one species, the male, leans more towards the left, the female leans more towards the right. But there are times when a being is born with both areas of the brain harmoniously configured, and we'll get into that about hermaphrodites and hemorphodites, which is another type of natural nature creation, right? So this energy and this energy in motion, from the brain activity, creates harmony between the two species, right? And so this is how creation manifests, even in all aspects, even within the universal laws, where you see planets being born, right? That material world, the material whirlwind that gathers itself, right? When you look at the universe and they say this is a star being born, what is happening? There's a whirlwind taking place, right? There's a circular attraction taking place. How is this attraction? Well, this attraction is from the feminine. The feminine is the being or the entity or the energy that attracts, right? So as she's attracting, I'm talking about in space, we're going to see the comparison on why the feminine is divine. It's because her body is working in tune with the universe, right? This is why she's in tune with the moon. The moon, the planetary bodies are actually in tune with her circulatory system, her menstrual cycle, her blood, her emotions. Everything about her is in tune with the universe physically. And that's why the divinity in her sits, because within her womb is this area of what you call space, matter, or space, right? That as it begins to whirl, or in a circular motion, right, which is her secret symbol, the circle, you see the same circular motion is dominant within the universe. So when you see the same aspect in the heavens where a star is being born, there's a circular motion that begins to attract within this void of darkness. And as this circular motion begins to spin, it begins to form into what? A new body. And this takes place also within the womb. This is why you're watching the universal creation take place within the feminine, when you see a whirling body attracting matter that's not there. You have to think that there's no matter within the womb. It's void. It's space. It's actually right, and it's dark. But there is water there. The same thing with the universe. When you look out into space, it looks void. It looks dark, right? And then all of a sudden, miraculously, a star will begin to circularly spin, and inside the womb, this baby begins to form. 9 billion years each universe takes to come into existence. 9 months that this baby begins to grow by this feminine attracting. So her attraction is a part of her divine essence. So she attracts the proper male that is needed to mate. But if you remove the attraction of beauty, which Muslims and Hebrews do, then they eliminate the part of creation that the feminine is dominant in. So it's systematic in how they eliminated the universal creation within our race by removing the feminine's authority and not allowing humanoids to see the power of the female. So because the Father is reintroducing it, right, those people that want this doctrine, you're going to hear it here. So make sure that you tune in for the complete lesson, because we have 4 sections that we're going to touch on. Her physical, which we're touching now, the spiritual body, also the patriarchal rule of religion and the damage it has done, and the deities as goddesses and Nethartat, which are your divine feminine overseers, the one that gave birth to the multiverses. Because if anything that's born has to come from a feminine, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you are on the planet. It doesn't matter what existence you in any universe, you're born out of the dark womb of the mother goddess. And that is a process by which she uses in science, in her divine essence, scientifically explained, where she births suns, births stars, births planets, births whatever existence, material world you see is coming from the womb of our ancient goddesses and deities. So let's move on. So the feminine, right, is because she's the holder of the double helix, right? Because she's the mother of the double helix, which, right, is obviously the chromosome, and is shaped within the womb. Her secret number is 1000, and that's also touched on in this particular publication. Right, I have these publications for those. The mother, right, circle of existence. When you see that, this is a master secret written by our Father. So he goes into explaining that this secret number as 1000 is how she other, right? The other, it's as the mother or the other, the circle. That secret number is space, time, and a vacuum, right? Which is the zero. Each zero represents 1000 represents space, time, and the circle of creation. So he explains this ancient science within this publication. We'll touch on it here. So her supreme number as the Supreme Mother is 1000. That is 999 plus 1. For unity, the one being that creates all others, which is the first symbol of Muhammadu Safa'at, which is in the Egyptian hieroglyphics. You'll see this as a Mudgar, which is a deity. You see that number 1000 because it represents the feminine, right? And as you know, there are many feminine deities, and we'll go over that as well. So the secret number 1000 is that she possesses, right, in her heredity. The Father points out that her heredity, her, right, deity or heredity, you see that in the genes records the race. These are records. Her mitochondria is a record of the entire bloodline of the race. And that's why when you listen to episode 1, we touched on to the haplogroups and the DNA. Someone asked me a question about that. I'll answer it. Right. So when you see this mitochondria passed down within this cell, the nucleus, not the nucleus of the cell, the body of the cell, which is a self-regulating machine that has the mitochondria within there from the feminine passed on from mother to child. It's an entire record of the genome, right? So we have, as ancient, right, Sabaeans and Egyptians, we understood that protection was necessary, which is why we elevated the feminine. Because without this bloodline, without her record keeping, your entire divine lineage will be lost. And so the Father is explaining that here, right? It says, and these feminines was given in their creation. He explains how they were given these 9 gifts, right? These actually 18. Let me read these 18 gifts within her as a skill set for her completeness as a woman. One was dance. These were skills that the feminine was given. If you notice how well they dance, how well they sing. Number 3, love making. She has many secrets of her pleasure in her pleasure palace that men don't know. because we have become so egotistical in our sexual pleasures, we've totally lost or forgot the significance of the feminine's body and the lotus flower that she has and the science behind sex. Not necessarily, there is an art, but there's a science behind it as well. So she has that within her as one of her skills, lovemaking. Number 4, playing music. 5, skill of sport. 6, building. 7, sewing, healing, teaching, weaving, carving, writing, cooking, creating, mathematics, chemistry, tongues, and sewing. So these are her skills that she was blessed with as a feminine. Now, originally, when coming to this planet, when the feminine was brought to this planet, they were given 12 males came from Saha, which is Orion, and 12 feminine came from Sabbatai, right? Or Sabbat, which is Sirius. Sirius is the southern chamber, right? When you see the star constellations, you'll see Orion's belt, and then right beneath it in the southern chamber, you'll see Sirius. Well, this was the feminine rule. This is the star system that the female energy was more dominant. And so in order to come to this planet before the humanoid creation, most of the beings born out of the feminine were hermaphrodite or hermaphrodite. They didn't split until later down the line, thousands of years later, when misbreeding had took place, and then the male and female began to separate. But you weren't separated as XY or YX. You were XYX, YXY, XXX, XXY, YXY. You had a various combination of the 3 chromosomes there. When we speak about the YX and the YX chromosome and the X chromosome, we're talking about humanoids or human beings now, not in the divine state. In the divine state, the feminine, most of them had twins or hermaphrodite or hermaphrodite. This is why the female has 2 breasts. Anytime a woman has one child, typically that's because the biological makeup, the genes of the feminine has come so far down that she only has 1 child when she actually supposed to have 2. This is why I have 2. But look at most animals, they have an amount of babies to accompany, they have the same amount of nipples to accompany the babies that they typically have. All the way to most species. Even with, dogs, cats, you'll see they have 6 nipples, they have 6 litters. Well, females or feminine were supposed to have 2. This is at a earlier period prior to her mixing in, when she was in her divine seat, when she was respected and loved as a goddess, and her words, when she spoke, they spoke with authority, and it was actually the chief mother goddess that would have the final say in instances of rulership. Either if it was to choose the male, choose a particular male, it was typically the sister of the son or the child or the chief or the pharaoh, whatever it is. It was either the feminine from his mother's side or his sister, and they would vote. The matriarch would vote on who would lead the nation or lead the tribe, etc. But the nation is born out of a woman. That's why nations are born. So that this feminine doctrine is needed so you can be reborn again mentally, in order to have a new liberating mindset moving into this new cycle. The feminine has to be in her place. Otherwise, it's going to be chaos. And it's no otherwise, because the destruction of men and what they've done in the religious doctrine, Mother Nature is restoring that rule again. And so we just have to be prepared for that. So let's move forward. So when the feminine gave birth, she would give birth to 2 particular children. Some of them, they were known as Mukashnatu, Mukash, Muknashtatu, which is your hermaphrodites, or Muknash, which is your hemorphidites, Muknashu. These are male, these are beings born with 2 genders. Let's move forward. So he says, they were the original deities of the planet, and were the offspring of these beings from where? Sahat and Sabatat. These beings were raised to be the highest because their physical bodies vibrated on two frequencies. This is the original breeding, not where you are now. Again, I have to reiterate that. So these beings were born with dual, let's say, sex organs, right? Which human beings are now in the womb, male and female. For the first 3 months, you share the same sex organs. So you really are morphing out of one, right, as coming into a male, coming into a female. At the 3rd month, you see that the clitoris and the testicles or the ovaries are one and the same. The clitoris is the penis, right? One is elongated, one is shortened. The ovaries are your testicles that has yet fallen. So when you see ovaries that fall, right, they become testicles in the 3rd month. That's why the doctor says, hey, you have to wait till 3 months before you know the gender. We don't know the gender as of now. That means that the gender is neutral. So there is a combination of XY there, and the degrees are subtle in the metamorphosis or the breaking out into, breaking apart down the genetic line where you become male or become female out of the womb at the 3rd month. There is a small degree that can affect the baby so slightly that it can change the gender of the child. And this is what happens when stress factors are introduced to a woman that's pregnant, right? A lot of times when you see a woman that's pregnant, she's going through trauma, and she has, let's say, baby daddy drama, as they claim, but baby father drama, whatever the case, right? And there's a high level of estrogen that's going into the blood, or there's high level of androgen. Those stress factors can throw off the chemical balance of the child. This is why our ancient women, when they were pregnant, they would, right, live amongst the feminine of their community that would maintain a harmonious level of comfort and security while the men provided and protected, as opposed to males being around a feminine while she's pregnant with emotions high, they're clashing, it can affect the child. So there was a method in how our priests and our elders separated the woman and allowed her to be around family so she could have that support, and none of the stress factors would be introduced into the child's psychological brain in order to, it can psychologically affect when those traumas are introduced into the genes. They set there, the traumas, and then it comes out later. You see why a lot of children have behavior issues. They have issues with their own insecurities. They have insecurities with themselves because the mother may have fought with the father. The baby looks like the father. Now he's feeling insecure because she hates the dad. All of those things affect the baby. It's a science behind that. This is why the ancients had these practices. So it says when the mother stressed during pregnancy can give birth to a male with a female spirit and a female with a male spirit. Now, that's the conflicting genetic part that takes place where nowadays where a female will say, wow, I'm a male, but I feel like a boy on the inside. Or a male says, well, I was born male, but I feel like a female on the inside. And vice versa. It's because that the spirit of the being at birth is the same spirit throughout the gestation period. However, there can be an imbalance in chemical hormonal secretions, which causes the body that's surrounding the male spirit to not drop the testicles, to keep the testicles inside and not allow the penis to develop. So now the male is trapped in the female body. There's two separate incidences going on, the spiritual manifestation and the physical manifestation. This is a science. This has nothing to do with the sexual preferences, which may come later in life with certain individuals who say, well, I'm gay or I'm this or that. That has nothing to do with that. This has to do with the genetics inside of the body of the feminine and what happens when she is pregnant, and the environment and the things that she's partaking when she's growing the child. The father makes things very clear. So when you have these hermaphrodites and hemaphrodites who were born, they had a specific characteristic that would allow them to have a double frequency let's say two frequencies that's going on at the same time, meaning they're tapped into both worlds at the same time. And so this is what happens with those hermaphrodites or hermaphrodites in the beginning of time. Some of them are still born, but this was how human beings were born at that period. Now we're dealing with genetic defects. We're dealing with because of the breeding from Ninti and what took place with her playing with the X chromosome, removing one of the stems, is the males that you see today, not the male Nathar that were prior to 6,000 years ago. So we just want to make a distinction. I'm sure many questions are going to come out of this. Okay, so now the Father said, what he's saying about this, because this world needs healing, he said the world is subtly transforming. Any questions? Yes. Yeah. The world is transforming, right, back to the feminine nurturing ruling, meaning that this planet has to move into a healing process. And most of the time when you heal, you lean on your mother. When you need comfort and nurturing, you lean on your mother, not the ruling that has been indoctrinated. Because when a male says women have to rule, immediately the men, a lot of men, not all men, but most men that haven't been taught by, been taught by this religious doctrine, they go back to the ruling of what you ruled the last 6,000 years as. With brute force, most of the time violence and manipulation, right? Not that ruling. The divine mother rules with divine love. The love that she has for her child, right? The love that she has for that when she'll do anything for her child is this love that she has for her creation as a whole. But it's also her weakness, because you as a male, in her creation, creating you as a male, she succumbed to your desires. She has succumbed even your sexual desires as a man. She succumbed to them, and a lot of that has caused her divinity to genes to be mixed with it, which has caused a certain amount of insanity from men who are not living in the image of the deities, of your gods. So if you have a male who comes along who's Hebrew or wants to be Muslim and is looking from a solely male-dominated mentality, you're going to ruin the feminine, because you're not allowing her wings to fly and allowing her divine being to express itself. Because of male insecurity, we've done that, which has caused the feminine to rebel and find other ways to express her freedom. And so we'll get into that with the Adamite and what the Adamites' religious doctrine have done to the men. But the Father's explaining that this is being, the world is transforming from male dominance back to female dominance. The deity that dominated the sky was Natatat, right? That's the feminine deity. You learn we're learning who these feminine deities are, because you don't hear about them anywhere else except in Wu Sabat. So who was this female Natatat, right? Natatat, or Natatat, which is T. When you hear tat at the end of a word, it means it's a female aspect. That's why you hear T-A-T at the end, which shows the feminine, right? So when you say something like Tautat, right? That's T-A-T for the female, and then Tautak, which is T-A-K or Ta'aka at the end for the masculine. And as we move forward, you'll get familiar with the language. So this Nathartat, right? A female Nathar, her name was Sakamat as well. She was an ancient Napatan from the period of 743 to 712 in Sudan, Nubia, and she is depicted as Lilith. She's the one that was breeding or used to breed man. And so she had to alter the X chromosome in order to allow this new breed, this Adamite and these other genes that were coming in from other star systems to breed this new man. She had to use that X chromosome and break a stem, so to speak, meaning remove some of the genes in order to allow the various species to breed genetically, for the genetic cloning. So it was a play on the genes, which caused the Y X chromosome to become maimed, which is why men have a Y chromosome. When you look at it, it's just a broken stem, which is a lot of genetic material. Some of the genetic material there that is missing are obviously would be breast, right? And some things, because women have breasts, you have nipples, but you don't have breasts. That means that, again, that according to religion, if Adam was created from this God, did he place nipples there? That would be the question. That's how you debunk the religious doctrine that, oh, women come from men. So if women came from man, how did those two nipples become breasts with the second creation of women? Right? If you have man and this being is created by God, and he says, hey, I put nipples here. He's like, why? Why did you place nipples on a man that they don't use? I say, okay, this is obviously will be the explanation. Okay, well, let's make use of them with women and make breasts there. No, that's not the case. It's the other way around. Within female, you hear male. Within woman, you hear man. Within lady, you hear lad. Within she, you hear he. Okay, so the feminine was first. This is the physical manifestation. Now, what the Father is explaining in this transforming of the world back is because that obviously, right, he explained that it needs healing and that Mother Nature is getting rid of all of the disease, the species that have created confusion and turmoil on the planet. She is removing them off of the planet. And her wrath is creating a cleansing that will move back into the female rulership or dominance on the planet, where basically she's maintaining the balance that the universe needed, because everything is off right now. The world is going insane. People are going insane because the mother figure is not there any longer. You don't have a mother goddess figure in any religious doctrine. You don't have a mother goddess figure in Islam. You don't have a mother goddess figure in Christianity, where they say, well, yeah, it's Mary, but they don't put her in the Trinity. And we do have a book called The Quality, an actual fact as well, if you inquire in the email, right? So they don't place the feminine there. In ancient Macman in Egypt, you always saw the feminine equal standing with the masculine, and oftentimes she was protecting the masculine. You often see the feminine holding the masculine and protecting him, because as a feminine goddess, she had protective powers. The deities were very powerful. Sukamat or Sukamtat, what means powerful. That is what her name means, right? And so these are just different areas, let's say explanations of why the world is the way it is, because if you look in societies like the West, America, you don't see what females can you show your daughter as an example of what a feminine is supposed to do. You don't see it. You may have one woman that was, two women in maybe the last 20 years that I can recall that was in the so-called spotlight, right? You have, what was it, Oprah maybe, Michelle Obama, I don't know. You don't see them. But on the continent in Africa, we still maintain ancestral acknowledgement going through the feminine, which is very important. So this what has to be done for the men. Now let's move forward. So it says, so what he's saying about the, he says in math, the Father says in math and creation, right? In computers, he talks about creation here. Go back to the creation of the woman. When you look at the creation of computers and the binary system, that computers language, the algorithms that computers communicate with, right? It's a binary system. When you note and you see that the mental is, he says mental is 0, right? And the physical is 1. So the mind is 0 for the male, and the 1 is the feminine. These are the cells and atoms of computers. Therefore, males equal 0 and females equal 1. So when you see the binary computer codes communicating in order to write out a program or in your coding, right? They started the early computers. Obviously, coding is much more advanced now, right? And with AI, but the binary computer conversational language was 010101 or 001110, depending on the code. Now this is the marriage of the male and female right and left part of the brain that creates a harmonious computer so creation can take place. And this is a universal law. This is not just on the physical plane. This is within the universe, because the feminine, as the first step to material matter, she attracts the matter in order to shape it, in order to materialize anything you see in this world. As anything you see from natural nature and from unnatural nature, is born from the feminine. Now, when I say unnatural nature, I'm saying things that are nature, things that human beings take from nature and then create on their own. It's an unnatural process because it's not naturally born or grown from the planet. It's created from man, but still, the material world, though men are analytical, we may build, we may shape, we may construct, It's the feminine that brings forth the material matter in the first place, in order for this to take place. So this is what he's explaining, how the science is. Now again, back to this analytical thing, the male mind, which shows the difference between how males see things and how feminine see things. This is why men say, well, I don't understand women, and women say, well, I will never understand. It's not that you don't understand it. It's just that you haven't tapped into the other part of your brain that would allow the complete merging of creation to take place. So men more so leans on the analytical side, and the Father explains this. He says, this is why male sees things and wants to take it apart. You want to undo things, analyze, see what's inside, break it down, see how it works, how this lever works, how this gadget operates, this wire, this is how men think. The feminine, on the other hand, she uses it, She sees images and she uses it for the betterment. In other words, a male may see a piece of metal and make a knife, when a feminine will see that same piece of metal and she'll make a spoon. This is the Father. She said, the Father said she'll make a spoon so she can cook. The male will create a knife so he can go hunt. So this is the two sides of the brain that has to be redeveloped and working together. Man used ideas to make atomic bombs and open up vortexes, and this is why the part of the brain, the image part of the brain for the feminine, has to be developed more, which is the reason why he says, that computers were introduced in this day and time to connect to the feminine, to allow them to develop that part of their brain, because upon the thought of our ancestors, the deities of ours seen the women in the houses, in homes, most of the time, locked up away from the world, placed on face veils, home taking care of the children, home cooking the meals, home doing this, while the men were out in the world. So in order to redevelop and assist the feminine to come into power, they introduced the computer, and that women now are at home starting businesses, doing things from the computer, which is allowing the image part of the brain to awaken. So to use more images now, you don't need to go to destroy to build. Now you can build directly from the images on your computer, which is effective for the feminine, for her to grow. This is what the Father is teaching in this the secret information, or the Gospels of the feminine, or outformation for the feminine. So you will know why the female has to become who she's supposed to become in this day and time, and take on the responsibility. But in that responsibility, there's a lot of obligations within that. But the education of who she is has to be taught. You have to learn who the feminine is. Totally different from any religious doctrine. You're not going to find it in any religious text. This is all new. We're all new to this outformation. You hear it, but you have to digest it and allow it to cleanse your insides from the Adamite religious doctrines, because you're not going to be able to survive what's taking place without the feminine in position to use the part of the brain that's needed for this new cycle. It's not about destroying and building, and those days are over. You can see now technology is so advanced, you can make $1 million right from your own home. Right? People are becoming billionaires. Why? Because of the imagery, the image part of the female's part of the brain that's being developed, not the old ways. So you'll see that how he's tied it in here. So he says this image technology will connect women to the world, as most women were in homes, houses, wives, created. This is created to change the world, right? Power her leadership, because man had used his ideas to destroy, plan wars, and do what? And for political power. This is how natural nature balances out things. The mitochondria holds the key to the world, peace, and a shook divine love. This is how the right side of the brain works. So, I hope we're clear on that. Please, okay, so let's just move forward, because we have quite a bit to cover. Any questions? I know this may be some questions afterwards, but now let's look at this patriarch. Let's go to the spiritual body first. Let's address our spiritual body. The feminine spiritual body. I think we address most of that. Okay, so now let's see what the patriarch has done. Now the patriarch has done, because of the religion. It's not the men's. Let's say this. I'm not blaming anybody personally, but the male species as a whole. You have to take accountability. You have to take responsibility for the damage that has been done. That's the only way you can heal the feminine and help your daughters, help our elders, help the wives, help your sisters. We have to do it. We have to acknowledge that this religious doctrine has poisoned us. We have to acknowledge that it has caused males to be egotistical. Everything is a male. God is a male. Angels are men. Prophets are men. The devil even is a man. You want good, you want to be the good guy and the bad guy. You want to be the superhero and the villain. You want to be the prophets and the messengers and the messiahs and the Mahdis and all of these, right? And you haven't placed your woman in a position where she can stand next to you. And so this has created a illusion that we have to, in order to feel powerful, we have to control the feminine. And that's Adamite's mentality. That was never our mentality. And because they raped our women, with the Father's spell, he said they raped our women and placed in our genes those abuses. So we think it's okay to carry out the same abuses that the Adamite taught you in Islam, that the Adamite taught you in religion, it taught you in Christianity, that the Adamite taught you in Hebrew doctrine. You feel as though it's necessary to abuse, right? However, because the female predates men by thousands of years, right? What he says, the Adamite doctrine, they had sanctioned the owning of females because they understood the power of the feminine. They understood that in order to control God, in order to maintain power, you have to control God. And they knew in our culture, our gods was the feminine. Not taken away from men. It's not taken away from you. You have your place. You have your position. You have your obligations. You have your duties. You have to provide. You have to protect. And providing is not just about food or a house. It's to provide security, to provide spiritual enlightenment, to provide a spiritual doctrine for her spiritual development, providing mental clarity. Providing is not just food. People think, oh, I'm providing, I'm paying. That's not what all provision is. Are you emotionally stable and have enough emotional intelligence to provide her with psychological stability in her own mind? Can you stabilize her emotions? Can you provide a safe space where you're not being manipulative, where you're not, don't have any underlying gaslighting or the abuses that you have subconsciously taken in order to maintain rule, maintain control. These are things that men have to change within themselves. You have to go within and ask, are you being manipulative? Are you being condescending? Are you being abusive? Have you kept your woman in the house? Do you want to control the money in order for her to feel subjected to you because it makes you feel powerful? These are things that religion has introduced. So you may think that, oh, it's okay that I'm just being a man. You're not being a man. You're being the man that the Adamite taught you, because the Father is teaching us how to be men in our culture, where you let the feminine exist in her glory, and you'll see your entire nation flourish, where you're not subjecting her to these particular Adamite ways. So what he says was that they've sanctioned the owning of the female's desires as if they're animals, and keeping them in the house for sexual relations and or pleasures, abusing herself while the masculine runs the streets. So most of the time in your sexual desires with her, it's about you getting yours. And don't think this is not important. It's very important, because when you do that, and her wanting to please her creation, her nurturing creation to make sure everyone is well, men take advantage of that. They do. And in that, you cause her not to be pleased. You cause her not to feel, you cause her to actually feel offended and frustrated, though she can't even express it. Ask the Muslim women that are in veils, and the men just want to have babies. They don't bring them to stimulation. They don't please them the way they're supposed to be pleased. This is in our doctrine. Speaking about this, even the physical body of the feminine, her erogenous zones, things that men literally overlook because you've been given a doctrine that you think you're on top of the world. Because you can judge the world. You're a man, even if it's an Adamite, you still, as a male, it does something to your psyche. Right? When you go to once, the Father says, once your eyes are open, once our eyes, men's eyes, are open, from then on, she is knowing that she is who she is as a sexual goddess, as she was born to be. Right? When he's saying sexual goddess, he's saying that the feminine's body works in such a magical way that her pleasure is like heaven, and that's why the Father said the heaven starts at a woman's feet, because you're trying to enter back into her garden of pleasures, the garden you were, born out of, and now you're trying to get back in, because that's the garden of delight in our doctrine, in our creation. That's the garden that births man and yielded the womb for the yielding of whatever being was to come out of her, from her creation, from her as the source. And that sexual pleasure causes her, if she's brought to a specific height, it causes her eyes, her third eye, really to open up, which is the G-spot in her orgasm that allows her to literally transform and shapeshift. These are secrets of the feminine that no one can tell you but the master teacher, because our Nathartat, our ancestors feminine, kept this information secret, right, from the beast man, from the Adamite, from the religious world outside of our culture. We didn't give them access to our feminine secrets. So this is, in 2025, we've been blessed to be given this through these particular books. Now, the Father says the masculine will seek to please themselves and neglect your physical anatomy, right, and hygiene. And this is very important to males. We must relearn to respect, or take a second look and respect, our matrix mother. Raise her back up, raise her head back up, raise our matriarch back up on her throne, right, from our tribe, the Femi-Nine, the deities of the planet. So let's get into this Adamite, this Adamite rule, right? So what's interesting is this. Oh, I wanted to read something to you too. Read something for you. Now, when you talk about the incarnated divine feminine, when the Father speaks about the number 9, when he says number 9 as it relates to her, Femi-Nine, you see that 9 is a completion, right? The 9 is the highest number of all numbers, contrary to what people think, that there is a 1,000, a million, whatever the case. No number is higher than 9. Every other number is a compound number. 1, 0, 1 and 10 is 1 and 0, 11 is 1 and 1, 1 and 2. So when he speaks about the 9, that 9 is capable of creating and growing all things within the feminine principles that are the combination of all energies of existing materials of matter, atomic and cellular and brain in the base of creation. Creative reasoning is the most powerful kind of reasoning. Now, the 9 Femi-Nine that he's in reference to, we're going to introduce, because I think some of the Femi-Nine here would like to hear who the 9 incarnated Femi-Nine deities are. The first one is Atumtet, right? Atumtet. The second is Nuntet. The third is Hatet. The fourth is Kaktet. The fifth is Amuntet. The sixth Tafafnatet. 7 Natet. 8 Ashtet. 9 Nababtet Hatet. That is of the Abduads and the Enneads, the Femi-Nine. Those 9 Femi-Nine from there are the mother goddesses that are responsible for growing the universes out of their wombs. Right? When the suns and original heat genes are fully formed and developed by the brain of brains and sound right reasoning, then the fetus of the solar system is ready to be born. That's the sun. So these suns, these planets are fetuses of the solar system. And our mother goddesses, right, exist in the etheric world, and they give birth to these physical bodies. These suns, these stars, these planets, right within your universe, right within the multiverses. These deities, these Femi-Nine, birth them. So right now, if you look into the sky through a telescope, you'll see one of our deities giving birth. And they may be born, and being born this particular cycle, it may take them millions of years to evolve to where you are today, or billions of years to more advanced beings, but this is a continuous cycle of existence. Right? The circle of existence. That's where the Femi-Nine plays a part. She attracts the material world. A world or world. A world or world. That's how the Father explains it. She attracts that attractive power that she has. When she's attracting this womb, this matter, and then she's shaping it. The same thing happens in space. She attracts this right matter and she shapes it into existence. So when planet Earth is women, it says many. We're going to start at verse 60. Many unknowingly gave up this divine right by mixing their bodily fluids with the children of the beast in black skin. They slept and exchanged their fluids, and in doing so lost their virginity and divinity. They must be cleansed inside, 62. Then became used, giving or going from man to man, male to male, and some even with man's kind. 63. They must be cleansed inside out, outside in. This is the planet Earth as women. This is one of the Patriarchal. They must be cleansed inside out and outside in order to regain their divinity and powers. 65. The eye that oversees earthly things is ever watchful and knows who did not know better and who did. Number 109. Now among Pakradu, Afaf, Re, Natharu, the children of the Natharu, you are children of the Nathar, Panatharu, the overseers. These are your ancestors. You are their children, right? The children of Natharu, mother, was equal to father. Number 10, and it was she who stepped down. Femi-Nine, you stepped down to give man equality. A grave mistake it was. 111, in those days she was respected by all. In those days her words were weighed. From then her tongue did not rattle in head like a seed in a dry pod. 113, the part of Ta'a earth was matriarch. All lived by matriarchy. 114, she having been the ruler of 4 stars of Sabatat, Sirius, and the center of the star map. 115, as Taweret, the great one, Nasutet, Zodiacus, seated in the center of Inut, right? Inut Re, Tanut, or Tadiet, Nitert, Dendora, Dendera, Dendera, or Dendara, which is your zodiac calendar, the star map. You'll see Zodiacus in the middle, which is for Taweret, the Femi-Nine, that was responsible for the cycles or the circles of creation and the cosmological clock. You see this on the temple of Hashatep or Hathor. You see the 12 zodiacs with the gateways in between. In between these gateways are vortexes or entrances to other worlds. Just like the Femi-Nine has a vortex to another world, which is her black hole, the opening, right? That yields to material matter, right? Or with space and time, from a microscopic etheric world to the material world. This is the magic that takes place. This is where the magic takes place. So when it says, 110, let's move forward. He says, women knew that though men could subdue her with his physical strength, he was weak in his desire for her. 117, in his weakness lay her power. In those days it was used wisely. So the Femi-Nine, that power she has to the male's desire for her, allow her to control the world, allow her to control men. Because in her desire, in the desire that men have, they'll be willing to do almost anything, even to this day. The desire for the Femi-Nine is very much powerful, that, so much so that men put their lives on the line to provide. Some men put their lives on the line to obtain the desire. They'll do the things for money in order to maintain or get more better women or more beautiful women. This is the drive of men. So the power that the Femi-Nine has, she hasn't been taught how to use it properly. So because the male is not in his right place in society, he's not in a position of rulership because of the Adamites' ways. She has adopted the ways of the Adamites' world and has used her abuse and has now abused the male. Right? And the male in turn now continuously abused the Femi-Nine. So it's a cycle that the Adamite has placed both of us in religious world in order to recycle, right? Placed us to recycle the same abuses that he introduced into each other. The African black and woman, the African black man and woman, he's introduced that into their genes, and now they're constantly conflicting, and that's what you're seeing with these gender wars. When you see these gender wars, why men don't want, let's say, modern day women. There's just so much going on with this gender, but this is the Adamite and his creation in order to eliminate the woman, because he knows that our Femi-Nine is the most powerful asset that we have. Not even an asset to us. Let me not say that, right? Because that seems like property. No, what I'm saying is it's our most powerful deity of our nation, of our tribe, of our family. He knows that, and so he sets out to turn the woman against the man, and sets out to make the man abuse the woman. Well, she will look at other races, other men's races that are in control, because the devil knows that if you show the woman, right, if you eliminate the man's, her man's control over society, or her man's control over the economy, her own man's control over the law or the police system or corporate, right? Corporate societies or your major companies or infrastructure or whatever institutions of government that they control. They know that if they remove him out of position, she can no longer look at him as being as respected or respecting him as a man, as a provider. So once he's out of position, she can look to other races, right, which particularly the Adamite, who is in control, and go to him for assistance, for provision, right? And that's the trap. So he's done a major job within these Adamic religions. And this is where the Father explains that with the woman in her weakness, but not in his weakness for her, she used it wisely in order to build. She would motivate the man to do better. She would breathe life into him. In his desire for her, she would set standards for herself, for him to reach in order to show himself and show the potential he has as a man, as a deity, in order to acquire the desires he had for the woman. She set the standard up like, okay, yeah, but we should be able to do this. Let's do this. And it motivates him. That's literally what the Father's explaining in these actual facts in Patriarchal. So let's move forward. Okay, so now so we ended with the planet Earth is women, right? That was 117. So females spoke before males. Female treble clef, that's the woman's tone. The male is bass clef. This is the tone that balances the brain again. Harmonious, harmony, right? Hard, where the Father's explained that once that harmonious mental creation takes place, then you will be able to transform. It's all about your transformation. So genetic alterations that cause the upper part of the female larynx to form a voice box for articulation. Yeah, so he's explaining about the female voice box and how her speaking, her vocals, right, being able to speak first, there was a alteration that was done in her, right, in males, not in her, but in the Y chromosome or in the male, in order for him to speak in a deeper tone. The alteration was done in order for his vocal cords to create. Let me just read it so we can be clear. What he says is, it was 54,000 Shamut at years ago that the Natharu overseers, this is 3, caused the Ashashu females' larynx to structure at the upper of the trachea, or to form a voice box capable of articulation. This genetic alteration caused the voice box to lower, forming a voice box to the vocal cords. 5. Vocal cords on the membranous folds in the larynx. 6. The tahruz vibration enables them to produce sawatat voices or sounds. Number 7. The Natharu overseers adjusted her mikzab chromosomes in her DNA strand so that her larynx began to lower itself in her throat. 8. And the Asha female began to be able to express herself with vocabulary and articulate tashar at emotions by madat at words and sounds and voice structure. It was 4,000 years later that the female taught males this secret, and they began to speak. So, unlike, let me move verse 10, 11, and 12. It says, it was adjusted in the Ayashu male's throat. 11. As a result of this tabruz projection of cartilage in the front of his throat appeared. 12. Unlike females, he had a defect. So, therefore, the male's defect, one of his defects is the throat, the larynx, this cartilage box. Another defect is the nipples that you don't use. And another defect is the wide broken chromosome stem that's not there. And so the woman is a perfected being. She has XX, right? And each stem is there, which makes her a complete being, right? Men are mental. So your abode is the mental abode, Mother controls the physical abode. Your job is to pass the wisdom on. The father is the mind. The feminine is the material, right? But because you come through her, she's closer to the deities. Therefore, you get your soul from the feminine. She's connected to Panatharu because she's used by Panatharu to birth other deities. So this is been switched around within the religious world where they're teaching that it's the men first. Now, these are the 9 principles of existence. Well, I'm not going to go through the 9 principles because that's going to take us into another conversation, right? But okay, we can touch on it. Let me touch on it here. Let's say Ka spirit, Ku mental, Katat physical, Ba'a soul, Katat plasmic. These are your 9 bodies. Ak etheric, right? 7 Hatu emotional, 8 Ebob senses, 9 Sekhem sparks of power. Now, let me check the chat for any questions. Any questions, please? Let me see here. Okay. Maybe we'll have questions for part 2, right? So, yeah, Rahobat, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Okay, so what does the feminine compel the man to do? Well, she compels him to do. What does the feminine compel the man to do? Well, she compels him to, 1, his desire to have sex and mate with females can direct him towards achievement by refusing to let him copulate. This pushes men, right? The woman that we want will do what's necessary to make it happen. If she's the one that we think, or one of the ones that we think would be great as a mate, as a wife, then it pushes us to achieve the needful in order for us to be successful in copulating with her, right? This is one of the things that, and she used that power for, let's say, benefit, not for seduction or to bring down or to destroy a nation or to destroy her male species or to destroy her sons, her father. No. She used it for the betterment of the race, and this is what makes the feminine divine, right? 2, her refusing any sexual pleasures. By refusing sexual pleasures until she knows or till he shows a degree of success and not working for others in other words, she can compel him to reach a level of success in order for the reward to copulate to bring forth children. So she has that control there. Also, when she allows a masculine to have sex, right, with anytime he desires, anytime he wants, he usually becomes lazy and less able to do his best, laying around, sleeping, doing nothing without thinking and reasoning for the family's success. So women, they have that power and control. Most men know that. Most women know that. It's just that let's approach this with a clean heart and mind in order to be successful in the future of our race. Because at this point where we are, there's a tipping scale. It's like people are going to go this way or you're going to go this way. Hopefully you're on the side that's moving forward progressively. But the feminine's power exists in that way to motivate man. So being a goddess feminine also means that you have a big responsibility to straighten things out. And that's your job coming into this new cycle. The Father's given you enough information in these publications. The Mother Circle of Existence, that's Master Secrets number 9. You also have Mitochondria DNA, Master Actual Facts number 22. Then you have Patanjal Shalal Yanun, Pakadash Fanastasu, which is the Gospel of Yanun, of the Sacred Feminine. That's another actual fact. And also Creators and Fashioners, goddess creators, the sacred feminine, and the planet Earth is women. So you can have those as well. Now, just email me. Now let's get to some of these. Rahubat everyone coming in. It's a man's world. It wouldn't be nothing without women. Just facts. So yeah, I wanted to address with this real quick, right? Not real quick, but I wanted to show like how the devil, because as we know him to be a liar, his race as a liar, his whole species, all of his so-called information he's placed, everything about what he teaches is a lie, including who the devil is, including who God is. So don't think that he's going to come with a doctrine that's going to teach you who God really is. Of course the devil, if he's lying, he's going to say, well, God said it, and he makes God a male. Obviously you have to say, okay, he may be lying about the species of God, right? When you see this devil create images of himself as a human being, they don't want they don't want to expose that, right? If he lied about God being he's lied about God, he's lied about God's gender. If he lies about himself, right, as being this being who's the most cunning and most influential and the most intelligent, then obviously he has that's gaslighting, because you can't be intelligent, you can't be deceitful and then you say, well, I want you all to worship. This is the devil and his talking. The devil wants you to worship him. You can't really be worshiping. You can't really be a devil worshiper, because the devil's nature is to turn on you. So no one in their church, no one in their satanic church can actually worship the devil, because in the entire cusp of his doctrine is deceit. So he's going to deceive you in every corner you turn. So this is a part of how. So is the God in the Bible the devil? That's a good question. Check out episode 4. We'll touch on that. We're addressing the Femi-Nine and her doctrine today. Okay, the devil is in. Okay, by making women believe that they. Okay, so what is the devil? By making women. This is some of the devil's tricks as it relates to women and their religion. By making women believe that they come from a masculine God and that women are or become unclean. Oh, the unclean issue. That's another. Talking about the menstrual cycle, or become unclean as their body cleanses itself. What does he? Another area or another lie the devil tells, that it is from a masculine deity and that females cannot lead in prayer, and some put them in the back of their prayer temples, claiming males are ahead of feminine. This is Islam. Islam teaches that the woman is below man. She's not equal to man. She has to sit in back in prayer, right? Another thing the devil teaches about the feminine that you must straighten out and set the record straight, that this masculine Yahweh trusts women less, and that less equal, like this is what they teach, and a less equal witness to a man when it comes to religious violations. In some instances in Islam, you have to have 4 female witnesses to be equivalent to 1 male witness. Right, so they don't trust the feminine's words as much as they claim they trust men. This is a part of the devil's doctrine. Also, the devil teaches in his rule that they rule by aggression. This is not how rulership is obtained. Rulership is not obtained by aggression. Rulership is done by persuasion. You persuade the best method or solution and the best outcome. That was our method. It wasn't by force or brute or aggression or subjugation to man's rule. Another lie they teach, that the masculine Negroid has never seen the man in his. Okay. With this point is that because the masculine male has never seen what a real Nathar, male masculine, how he treats or supposed to treat his Gadatat, his goddess, right? The mother, he's always seen and always watched abuse to the women. This is what he was raised up on. all the way from 400 years ago, 500 years ago, he watched other races abuse the woman. And so he's never seen a male, even amongst the leaders, uplift the woman to where she is respected and sat on her throne the way she's supposed to be. Because most of the Africans of the diaspora, most of the Africans on the continent who've been colonized by the Adamite, they haven't seen the respect that our ancients gave our women, so they don't have the example. So though we say yes, with men, you haven't seen the example of what men in leadership positions that rule their lands, that rule their worlds, that rule their estates, that are kings or pharaohs or Nasut or Nasutat in particular areas. You haven't seen how they treat the feminine goddess. So the only thing we see in this society is what the Adamite has introduced. So all of this has to be retaught, and this is being done through Sabat. The Father has blessed us with this doctrine. So these are the lies that the devil tells the people of religion, of Islam, of Christianity and Judaism about the feminine. Now, let's go on, right? When you see yes. So now when they teach that when you see the Adamite, right? When you look at his world, when he says that any control that he has, it was done by suppression of the feminine. Every area of control, right? Therefore, the feminine has always been rejected, has always rejected masculine rule, and it's impossible for her to submit. It goes against the natural nature because she's rebelling. And that's why people say women are out of control. It's not. They've been abused. Would you be under control if you've been abused for 6,000 years? What you expect? You expect an abuse victim? You see people abused for a year, they come out traumatized. And you can't expect them to behave the way that you want them to behave. So men, stop complaining that the women are out of control. Stop complaining that these women, they have a feminist movement. They've been abused so long, they liable to act out anyway, uncontrolled. You have no control over that because you're responsible for her being abused and victimized, right? Even if you're not responsible, you have to understand and be compassionate. Her as a victim to these activities, victims respond and they psychologically, they act out differently. From a child has been abused, they may be afraid of any type of control. If you shut a door, they may be liable to go through a claustrophobic attack because they've been locked up in the house for 400 years, and you decide you shut the door and you want to know why she's going off because she had the door open. She may feel comfortable having the door open because the traumas. So these are things we must understand when we look at the world and see why women are rebelling and creating these groups to come together to empower each other, because they're not receiving it from the religious world, they're not receiving it from the political world, they're not receiving it from culture, they're not receiving it from their families, they're not receiving it from the men that are protecting them. So they've been through a lot, and that has to be reiterated. The masculine is not aware of what has been done, and frankly doesn't care, because his masculine position will be in question and his evils exposed. This is the Father speaking. If we want actual facts, we have to take it all. And he doesn't sugarcoat it when it comes to his daughters. And you shouldn't sugarcoat it when it comes to your daughters. You shouldn't sugarcoat anything when it comes to the protection of your wife, the protection of your mate, the protection of your mother goddess, the protection of your grandmothers. You have to make sure that the men get some type of healing within them, and this actual fact doctrine as it relates to the feminine is really helpful to men, because these are things that you won't find in the Bibles and the Qurans that gave you your authority. So you received an authority based on ego, based on control,